Welcome to Drew Code Sports Talk, everybody. I am your host, Cody Johnson, joined alongside with the voice of the Sanger West Hornets himself, Andrew Wright. Andrew, how you doing, man? 2 weeks in a row. I think we got a nice little thing going on here.
I know, it's nice. It's like I'm on the show.
It's almost like your name is in the show.
Yeah, I know.
Weird.
It's crazy. Yeah, no, it's good. Luckily, I had practice this morning, so I had the evening freed up, and my wife was nice enough to say, "Yeah, go for it. Go do your thing, and I'll watch my shows." So here I am.
There we go. Yeah, Jessica is always the real MVP because, as you know, and I tell you this all the time, I always get nervous about telling you, like, hey, let's do, the show, because I know that you're always busy. And, anytime you have a free moment with the family, it's always a good, opportunity to take that. So I always feel bad if I say, hey, man, you want to come on the show? You want to do it? And then you text me, especially like today. Today was like late, like last minute thing, which was great, because it was a nice little surprise. But, I always feel nervous taking away your free time now that you're, leading a whole program all by yourself, man. So
sorry, my dog is really thirsty all of a sudden, hadn't left my side this whole time. Then we start recording. He's like, I think I'll drink a gallon of water. Jeez, dog.
Hey, Dad, can you fill up this bowl for me? I'm still thirsty.
Hey, Dad, I know you just filled it up, but I drank all of it. Just because you're recording right now. You're a jerk sometimes, guy. Anyway, no, it is good to be here, and I love doing it. And I got to shout out everyone at Sanger West, kids, staff. Everyone's been really, really nice and have been very supportive in Drew Code Sports Talk, which is really cool. I'm constantly getting people coming up to me and going, hey, I didn't know you had a podcast, and I was listening to it and I thought you looked familiar, and then all of a sudden I was like, oh shoot, that's Andrew. So I really appreciate everyone supporting us, whether it just be a like on TikTok or actually listening to I've seen a couple of teachers and students download the episode right in front of me. And they're like, oh yeah, I'm listening to your podcast right now. I'm like, oh, that's awesome. Thank you, man. So big shout out to Sanger West staff and students, because they are, that high school has obviously meant a lot to me, because I have 3 jobs there now.
Yeah.
But and they've been very supportive of me as well. So I cannot thank all those people over there enough. So thank you guys.
Yeah. It's really cool to get your polos and say another person came up and said, I listened to the show or saw this, like that. And especially because behind the scenes, I'm usually making the video cuts to promote Stingers Up. And, I get a ton of follow backs on our Instagram page from, it looks like students, and they're all Sanger West. So I hope they're enjoying it. I hope that they realize how much you care about that school and how much you're invested in, the growth of the program and the school itself, and, getting your polos to hear how much people are kind of responding to, the care that you have for them is really, really cool. So please keep it up. I love hearing about it. And, as you said, Drew, it's a very cool experience to get that, get that recognition. And so I think that's really cool that you share that all the time. But speaking of Stingers Up, by the way, before we continue, don't forget to subscribe to the show. You can subscribe on the podcast as well. Do you have a little preview for us for Stingers Up?
So our next game we have is on Thursday. We are playing Fowler at Sanger West. JV will play at 5:00 and varsity plays at 6:30. So I will be there, obviously, and I will be doing the announcing, so that'll be fun. But I've been trying to do a lot of the stats as well for both teams, so that way we have them right then and there, and it actually makes it easier for the other coaches to implement the stats into max preps and all that jazz. So which has been really cool. They're like tripped out. It's funny because Cody, you'll laugh. I'm one of like the technology guys on the basketball staff, and I know diddly squat about it. But like I have all the stuff, and I'm just like doing it right there on the iPad.
Yeah.
And they're like, "Wait, what app is that? How do you show me how it works?" And so I'll like show them, and they're like, "That is amazing. Can you keep doing that?" I was like, "Yeah, sure." And I'm just like, and then like. Before I bought my own clipboard, I was just using the iPad, and you can draw on it. They're like, "Which app is that? How do you do?" Like, and I was like, "Yeah, you know what's really cool is like you can enter in the players, and then like you can like create a player, a drill right then and there, and just show them right then and there." And they're like, "Show me," and so I was showing them that, and so it's been fun. I enjoy it. I say that tongue in cheek because it's just like two apps that are like doing all the work. But it is kind of funny that I'm like, oh, I kind of feel like, I'm the technology guy. Like I know my stuff, but I don't. So
as I can attest, enough technology to swim, but
yeah,
once you get out in deeper waters, it's another story.
Yeah.
So the Thursday game that you mentioned, do you have an X factor of a player that maybe could help swing the game or will be needed for your guys' matchup?
So Soha and Shelby I've shouted them out twice already on the Stingers Up podcast. The last two games that we have played, they've been big factors. I think another X factor that I would say is going to be Nobel, because when she's running the offense, she's been in the offense for so long that she like fully has a grasp on it. And so she's a big X factor. And last game, she was coming off being sick. And so she ended up not starting, and she didn't play a ton of minutes. She did play quite a bit, but it wasn't as many as she usually does. So I think she's going to be an X factor. I think you're going to see what we're going to be capable of, because defensively she doesn't reach a ton, but she knows when to go after the ball and when to stay in front of her defender. She may not be the most confident shooter, but she's gotten better about shooting wide open shots and whatnot. So I really I would say she's going to be the X factor, because, like I said, the last game we didn't really have her fully, and so I think to have her the whole game, and she'll probably start, in my assumption, that actually might be a huge X factor that we have. So.
Okay. Do you like the chances that the Hornets have against Fowler, and do you have a couple of keys to victory?
Well, limit the turnovers. Last game we ended up losing by 3. We had 29 turnovers. That's too many.
Okay.
And free throw shooting was big. We were under 50%, so they are going to have to shoot at least 50%, because I think they were at, oh man, I don't have it on the top. I don't have it here, but I think it was about 47%. And if they would have made 3 more of their free throws, they went 10 for 27. I can't think of the percentage right now. But if they would have made 3 more of their free throws, we have a tie game, and there was still like 33 seconds left on the clock. So we would have been in the game, had every chance to win that game. And listen, also Parlier hit some incredible shots, some tough shots, and some big shots that they were just ended up getting wide open by their ball movement, which was really good. So not taking anything away, but by all means, we should have won that game, and we just made too many mistakes.
All right. Nice little Stingers Up preview. Don't forget, guys, it comes out weekly, and it is about a variety of Sanger West Hornets sports. So stay tuned for that. So thanks, Drew, for that. Let's get started into the show. So, Drew, as you and I were texting on Black Friday, of course, our Raiders win against our AFC West rivals, against the defending champion Chiefs. And I don't want to speak for you, but I'll say for me, I did not have a lot of high expectations, especially the loss that we had the previous week, how we looked. I was concerned. But, we looked actually pretty respectable. We were moving the ball a little bit better with Aiden O'Connell we still finished with a loss. We lost 17-19. Had a boneheaded play that happened on a rookie center to a quarterback who took full responsibility, and it just, that's how the cookie crumbles, as they would say. And the Chiefs ended up winning and continuing, but we had them on the ropes in Arrowhead, which I think is pretty huge for the Raiders, considering all the adversity we've gone through so far this season. So, Drew, I just want to know your thoughts of the game. Were you encouraged, or did you just think this is the same old Raiders?
I would have to go with, I would say both. I was encouraged because it was nice to be competitive in the game. That's first and foremost. But it's the same old Raiders because there were so many, and it's not just the ending. There were so many situations that Antonio Pierce was in that I felt like I don't understand why we're not like the play that the refs ended up getting right, but then they ran a run play so quickly. Like the Chiefs were going to challenge the play, and it was like, no, it went in their favor.
Right.
So why are we running the ball so quickly? And it was like, why wouldn't you just take your time? Like, hey, maybe call a timeout. And I kind of understood, like, maybe not taking a timeout. You want to save your timeout. Like, I can understand that, but at least call a better play. Like, they rushed to the line. It was weird. It was a weird play, and at first I remember texting you and I was like, why are we not challenging this play? And then, they showed it on replay and it looked like the refs got it right. And I was like, but still, why are we running? And then by that time, I was like, oh, the refs got it right. They snapped the ball and ran it and got stuffed. And I was like, so that was our best play? Like all year, our running game has been crap. Yeah, maybe this game it was starting to look decent, but we're going to run the ball when it's been awful all year. So I don't understand that play call. I don't understand the rush. Maybe trying to catch the Chiefs off guard, but it's like the Chiefs have done this for how many years now? They're 11-1 at that point, 10-1. You're not catching them off guard. Like they're ready every single week. And listen, I know a lot of people want to kind of dump on the Kansas City Chiefs are like, what's going on? Like, what is wrong with them? Why are they so bad? Why are they letting these teams in? And it's just kind of like, I do feel like the Chiefs aren't the team that they used to be, but I do also feel like the Chiefs know how to win the close games, and that's all that really matters. Like, to me, it seems like they're trying a few things a little more, or they're trying to get other guys involved a little bit more than they normally would. So I am a little worried about the Chiefs, but at the same time, I kind of think this is actually playing in their favor, if that makes sense. And so I know a lot of people might disagree with me on that, but I feel like the Chiefs, everyone's freaking out about them, and I don't think Andy Reid thinks that this is his best team, but I also don't think he's a dumb coach and all of a sudden can't coach anymore or whatever. Like Isaiah Pacheco and Kareem Hunt had 14 total carries, and then Patrick Mahomes had 2. So they ran the ball 16 times, threw the ball 46 times against the Raiders. Like, that's not what the Chiefs normally do, if we're being honest. But they're trying to ease Pacheco back in. Hunt hasn't been fantastic, and they're not running Mahomes every single time. So they're throwing a little bit more to get these guys ready. And Kelsey ended up having a nice game, but they're getting Noah Gray involved more. It looked Xavier Worthy was a little more involved this week. DeAndre Hopkins was getting a little more involved. So these guys are getting more and more involved, and to me, that tells me that Mahomes and Reid are trying to get these guys ready for the playoffs. Like, hey, if we need you at this point in time or this particular game, we need to know that you can make this play. And that's kind of what I took from this game. It's not necessarily the Raiders did play a lot better. They made some dumb mistakes. O'Connell is still not my favorite. I know he threw for 340 and 2 touchdowns. The numbers look great. But when push came to shove, on third downs, when we needed a first down, he wasn't making the plays. He was making mistakes, throwing the ball into double coverage, stuff like that. And so for me, I'm still not impressed. I'm impressed that he was like, Brock Bowers is down there somewhere, and threw it to him a ton of times, 14 targets to be exact, 10 catches by Bowers. So, that's good. I mean, there was good things and there was bad things, but what I took for more of it was it kind of looked to me watching the game, it looked like the Chiefs are trying to get guys, they're trying to build them up to be ready for the playoffs, and that's what I took away from this.
So I think for me, I can take a little bit more of encouragement from what the Raiders showed, the fight that they showed. And I think the reason why I say that is because this whole season, and especially leading into this game, I'll say from Raider Nation, I think their expectations of what they're expecting AP to do with this team is a little much. It's a little too, they're asking for too much in a short amount of time, like calling for AP's job after 12 weeks, all these injuries on the defensive side of the ball. We don't even have a good quarterback. We're going through, I would almost say like a little bit of a rebuild where you just haven't gotten to the offseason to even officially start it yet. And I think what I found encouragement in is this game really showed that AP still has a voice in the locker room, and he can still get these guys ready to play, ready to fight. Because in every facet of the game, other than two things, which is what our Achilles heel has been majority of this game, we beat the Chiefs in total yards, including both passing and rushing. We outperformed them in those three metrics, and we had longer time of possession. We had more first downs. The two categories that we lost to the Chiefs in is we had more penalties than they did. We had 9 to their 7, and those 9 penalties cost us over 100 yards. And we had one fumble, one turnover, which gave them an extra possession, which, as we can see, made all the difference. That fumble at the end of the game cost us. I have a little apprehension about how it all went down. It sounded like to me they blew the play dead, and then the Chiefs recovered the ball, but then they determined that it was an illegal shift. And so it is what it is. The game's over. I think it was a little odd, but that's fine. But, Aiden O'Connell showed a lot of heart. I think his first game back after being on the IR, he looked really good. Our offense with Scott Turner and Norv Turner looked a lot better. I can get behind that. Our run game looked a little bit more respectable. We had 4.5 rush yards per attempt off of, I think it was 20 something attempts, I believe. So that was
25,
25 attempts. So that was really encouraging to see. Another thing though, is I am kind of glad that we are strengthening our position to get a very high draft pick, because ultimately I agree. Like, I really like Aiden O'Connell. If anything, I really want him to be a really good player, because we could really use a player like that as a backup. I feel like confidently, if there was a franchise guy that we had, but we had Aiden O'Connell backing him up, if Aiden O'Connell had come in, I know for about 2 games, God forbid, I know that he's got it. He can handle himself very well and in poise, because Aiden O'Connell was the last quarterback to beat Patrick Mahomes last season on Christmas, and he almost did it again on Black Friday. So I know that Aiden O'Connell in big moments, it can be there if needed. But one of the things that, again, that I'm concerned with is, like, the Raider fans have this expectation that AP's job's on the line. And, I even asked you a couple of weeks ago, Mike Vrabel's being thrown out there. What do you think about that? And, to me, like, this season just kind of encompasses, like, there's so much that has happened in his short one season that we're putting it on. It's his fault that he can't get these guys going. But Christian Wilkes has been injured. Devontae Adams wanted out of a trade that he's basically put in play for over a year. Luke Getsy was probably what set us back this entire season. And that was because AP couldn't get the guy that he wanted at the top of the season when we were going through this whole, hiring his coaching staff. So, I just think that this whole game just showed me that Raiders still have fight. They're not out of it yet, even though, it is kind of nice to see that they are bettering their draft position. So that way, maybe we can find someone to lead the franchise. And I know this is actually going to segue into my next question, Drew, and I think I kind of know your answer, but I just want to hear it. I was hearing from Hondo Carpenter that Aiden O'Connell showed a lot of good skills and a really good play to maybe make the Raiders think that maybe they can hold out for one more year for Arch Manning. And I'm wondering, what do you feel about that? Do you think that we can stick with Aiden O'Connell as a bridge to go for Aiden, or would you rather just find a quarterback in this draft?
My only concern with that is I'm not high on Aiden O'Connell. I think I've made that very clear. But I don't think Aiden O'Connell is that bad where we would be in position to have a top 5 pick. I don't think he's that bad. I do think because the way he plays, he is a conservative quarterback. So if the throw isn't there, he doesn't force too many passes. When push comes to shove, when it's like 3rd and 5 or 4th and 2 or whatever, and we run a pass play or we're in the red zone, I don't trust him. Mm-hmm. But when it comes to moving the ball, if the receiver downfield is not open, he's not going to just absolutely launch it. He's just going to kind of dump it off to a running back or a tight end on a short route or a receiver, whatever. And he's really good with that. He's very good at finding things open in the middle, and I can appreciate that. So as much as I would love to get Arch Manning because I'm very high on Manning, mm-hmm. At the same time, I just don't think the Raiders would be bad enough. I mean, barring some injuries, of course, if they don't beef up the offensive line, which that would be my other argument, is if we do not get a quarterback in this draft, mm-hmm. then you have to beef up the offensive line. If you beef up the offensive line, that's half your battles already. And you're not going to be as bad as what you want to be.
Can I throw something at you? Mm-hmm. So does Aiden O'Connell's play make you think that, okay, maybe with our first 2 rounds, we don't really need to go for a quarterback. Maybe we could sniff out some talent where maybe there's some upside. We just need to coach it up. And would that make you feel better? Because, you can trust Aiden to at least get us by while we beef up the offensive line. Maybe we look at some more players on the defensive side to bolster that side of the ball. Does that sound more appealing now that, again, we're not trusting Aiden O'Connell with the keys to the kingdom, so to speak, but mm-hmm. what we can do is we can say, you know what, Aiden O'Connell plays well enough to where maybe we don't have to reach for Shedeur Sanders. Maybe we don't have to reach for a Cam Ward, Maybe we could wait until round 3 maybe to find a guy that has a lot of promise and he has a great arm, good instincts, and we like how he plays the game. We just can coach him into the NFL. How do you feel about that as opposed to, going first round quarterback?
So as I said last week, I think you go after Shedeur Sanders. I think he's proven himself. And if you have a top 3 pick and the Giants don't take him, who are all intents and purposes the number 1 pick right now. Mm-hmm. If they don't take him, you absolutely take Sanders. Because the only other thing is I think it should be floated around of, hey, what if we waited on a quarterback? We go get, Jalen Milroe, or we get a, Quinn Ewers maybe a little bit later, trade down a little bit. I'm okay with that. I am okay with that. But my thing is, if I'm looking for as sure of a thing in this draft, Shedeur Sanders at the quarterback position, at least, mm-hmm. is my sure thing. Quinn Ewers to me is a little bit. I would be really happy with him, but I don't know if he could start where Aiden O'Connell would then start. But then when would you put in Ewers? You know what I mean? Like you'd have to deal with that, or you'd have to deal with, well, how come we didn't start? Why did we go after him so in the first round, and we're not starting him or whatever? Mm-hmm. So that would be a tough conversation. So then to get Jalen Milroe, you're still going to have those conversations, but if you're able to get him a little bit later, I I think you can then make the case, okay, we're going to start Aiden O'Connell, we're going to build up Milrow, and you can go after the offensive line, you can go after maybe the running back from Boise State, I'm drawing a blank, Genty. You know, if you could go after that guy, who I think would be someone I would really think about picking high up there. I know like top 5 pick running back is like shunned upon in the NFL, but I think Genty has proven himself. Listen, Boise State is not them being number 4 in the college football playoff bracket right now is they shouldn't be there. Like really the only reason they're there is Genty. Like I'm not saying they're a bad team, but like all the other teams that are on there, you have like Georgia and you have Indiana, who's been a nice surprise, Notre Dame, like all of these teams who are getting all these guys. Like Boise State is doing a great job, and congratulations on even being thought of in the top 5. Like that's amazing.
Right.
I'm not dumping on them, but they have no business being the number 4 seed. And so the only reason they're there is because they have a Heisman Trophy hopeful at the running back position, and it kind of helps. And I'm not dumping on the Mountain West, but it kind of helps that you're playing in the Mountain West. So those are some nice, somewhat smooth wins.
There you
go. So yeah, I'm more on the side of if you can get Sanders, get him. Because there's no guarantee you're going to get Arch Manning. There's no guarantee that you're going to be that bad. And as much as I would love to, and if we could tank, I would throw in Nathan Peterman at the quarterback position.
God.
That's how I would ensure.
It'd be like if anyone's ever seen that baseball movie Major League where they put basically a bandit of players together hoping to get dead last place to relocate the team. That's basically what we'd have to do to get Arch Manning. Yeah.
So and that's the thing. That's the issue is like you look at the defense, and the defense is pretty solid. Like there's some things that we need still. Of course, I'm not saying like we're good. We can ignore it, but like they're not a bad defense, and it just sucks that right now the offense is really struggling. But at the time, we had Devontae Adams. Okay, we got rid of him, but Jacoby Myers is playing. Oh, Brock Bowers is really good, and and then Aiden O'Connell had a really good game this past week. So they're not terrible. They just don't have everything that they need, and so I can get behind maybe beefing up that offensive line, or getting a playmaker in Genty, but the issue that you're going to run into is now your team is better, and you're not going to get the pick that you think you are. I mean, right now we can't foresee who's going to be the worst team in the NFL. And hey, maybe we would, and maybe that's their plan. But I think AP right now is in a position where he's got to go win now. So he's going to go after Sanders first. If that's not available, I think they are going to really look at, okay, what can we do? We should probably trade down, or they're going to get, a high draft pick, playmaker like a Travis Hunter or something.
Yeah. So I would agree. I mean, I like Aiden O'Connell, as I've mentioned. Now, here's the thing. Let's say the Giants do get Shedeur Sanders over us, and we're hanging around with the 3rd pick. I don't know if Cam Ward is the number 3 pick for us at that point, or if, like what you had mentioned, maybe we trade out of that spot, get a couple of more picks in the 1st round, and maybe bolster up some 1st and 2nd day picks, and then build out that way, which, that if we feel like that's the best move, that'd be fine. But I would agree, like, as much as I like Aiden O'Connell, I think I like the surety of getting a franchise quarterback, which you and I last year were talking that we really needed to get a franchise quarterback out of the last draft that came in, because we felt like there was a lot of good quarterbacks that we can probably get our hands on, but we really needed to, go after one of them. And, of course, the way that the draft worked out, I think like the top 5 went within the first 7 or 8 picks, and we picked at number 13. Fortunately, we got Brock Bowers out of it, but we weren't really able to. We didn't think that there was a quarterback after that we were willing to pick up and go out from there. So now that we've had a whole season of this whole bridge quarterback situation, I would like to just solidify that we get a franchise quarterback for the next 10 years and then just make sure that we build around that rather than, oh, I think this guy shows some promise. We might be able to win with this guy. We might be able to be relevant with this guy. I'd rather just get that position squared away and then let's build around it. Let's do what, smart teams have done, and let's actually get a young quarterback with a young contract, because that's going to help us build around that. And then let's go and win from there. I think that's what we need to do. These flashy picks of overpaying for players, I think that's an old Raiders way. I think Tom Telesco and AP are trying to build it in a way. And again, I don't want to keep circling back, but Hondo Carpenter said that they're not trying to be good for this season. They're trying to strengthen the legacy for the future and have like a recurring winning season. And you don't do that with, one-time draft picks or signings and win one season. No, you build it over time. Yeah. And that's just where we're at right now. So
unfortunately.
Yeah. All right. So quickly, before we go on to the next one, Drew, do you think the Chiefs are, do you think the Chiefs are still in a position where they have a good shot at three-peating, or do you think that they're vulnerable?
I think they are vulnerable, but I do still think I'm still very confident in the Chiefs. The only teams I would be worried about if I'm the Chiefs is right now the Bills have really caught fire.
Yeah.
And that's scary. I'm actually not as afraid of the Ravens if I'm the Chiefs as maybe other teams would be. The Broncos, I actually do think they're starting to kind of catch fire a little bit. Sorry, I'm trying to scroll through some of the AFC teams. The Steelers, I think the Chiefs could handle the Steelers if I'm being honest. Yeah, I'm not as afraid of the Steelers as maybe a lot of other teams. But I do think there are still some teams that the Chiefs have to be worried about. But overall, in the playoffs, the Chiefs have the Bills' number. The Broncos, I think, are maybe a year or two still away from being a real, true contender. And the Ravens, for some reason, I can't trust them in the playoffs. Like, yeah, you have Derrick Henry, which is great, but the Ravens have proven time and time and time and time again that in the playoffs, if the run game is not working, and I like Lamar Jackson, I think he's a really good quarterback, but for some reason, when it's all left onto him with his arm, it just doesn't seem to get done. And so that's my worry. So that's why I'm still pretty confident in the Chiefs.
I would agree that they are super vulnerable. And I think the reason why is because they're going through the regular season and they don't feel like an 11-1 team. They feel like they feel like a 9-4 team or a 9-3 team. They feel like, they've lost some games, but they're on the other side of 500. But you look up and they're like, oh, they've only lost one game this whole season. And granted, they've won a lot of close games. But I think, too, what people are forgetting is that's what matters. And the Chiefs are the best team in the NFL. They've won the previous 2 Super Bowls. They're going for a three-peat. You are going to get teams' best every single week. It is not like the Chiefs get a night off from playing the Panthers, playing this team, playing that team that we think, oh, the Chiefs have it easy. No, they are playing literally any team every week. They are playing their best, and that's what the Chiefs are enduring. And people are forgetting they're also going through injuries. Isaiah Pacheco just came back, and he missed the last 8 games because of a foot injury. They don't have Rashee Rice, which we were saying that this core with Xavier Worthy, Rice, and I think they hadn't had Juju Smith-Schuster yet, but they had Kelsey. We thought that this was probably their best receiving core they've had in a while because of how explosive they were. Now, post-injury, they've added DeAndre Hopkins, and they're incorporating Noah Gray into their offense now. They are more of like a dunk and dive. They're playing the middle of the field, getting short intermediate, which is what teams are giving them. They're not throwing it over the top like they used to. But they're winning these games when it matters the most. They are outlasting teams because that's how they're built to do. They're not built to beat you in 3 quarters. They're built to beat you in the 4th quarter. And I think that's what people are missing. So do I think they're vulnerable? Yeah, but I again, they show up when the lights are on the brightest. That defense comes alive in the postseason. And unless they meet a team like Detroit that matches that defensive energy with their defense and has an explosive offense like they do, or even the Eagles, I wouldn't even be surprised if there was a rematch with the Eagles, just the way that they're playing with Saquon Barkley and A.J. Brown, they might be heading to a repeat. But, the only team in the AFC that I see that really puts the Chiefs in a vulnerable spot is the Bills, and that's just because their defense is very good. They've already seen them once and had their way with them. But just like what you said, the regular season, the Bills got them, but the Chiefs have had the Bills number the last 3 years running.
Yeah.
And that's a high probability that the Chiefs see them in the regular season, see their best shot, and then adjust and then really just that's how they win the AFC over the Bills is because they're just better at adjusting.
Yeah, and this honestly reminds me of the New England Patriot years.
Yeah.
The New England Patriots, this is how they always would win in the regular season. It was like, oh, I don't know. I mean, can the Patriots really, they would always be like 11-5. So like they're a good team, but they're not the best team, and they had maybe some injuries, and now they're kind of coming back, and how are they going to look? And then they would be fine. And now there's reports that Marquise Brown is supposed to be, or Hollywood Brown is supposed to be coming back week 18 for the Chiefs. So week 17, week 18, one of those.
I think what makes that tough is he's been out the whole season, and yes, he's explosive, but is he even in game shape?
Yeah. Well, I know, but he'll be another weapon that he can use, and he's an experienced receiver. Is he great? No, but he'll have a little more experience than any of those other receivers that they had. Well, besides DeAndre Hopkins now. Good God.
And Juju Smith-Schuster, he was with them he helped them win the Super Bowl last year. So it's not like they don't have a plethora of weapons that they've used. And again, I think this is what you and I talk about. It's, they look bad in the regular season, and then you get them in the postseason, and then this is why they are, defending two-time champions, and they've won it in previous years. It's just, this is what they do. They're the toughest team in football to play because they're just built to outlast you.
Yeah.
All right. So moving on to, you mentioned about the Eagles and the Ravens. Are we realizing that the Ravens are pretenders rather than contenders?
I don't want to say that they're pretenders because they are a good team. And like I said, I really like Lamar Jackson. I think he is very underrated. And overall, Derrick Henry had a really good game. I mean, he was, averaging 4.3 yards per rush, 19 carries for 82 yards. So not terrible. I mean, he's run the ball well. Lamar Jackson ran 8 times for 79 yards and also threw for 237 and had 2 touchdowns. So, I mean, that's great. He looked good, but the issue is like the Eagles right now, they still have one of the best offensive lines.
Yeah.
Yes, they lost Jason Kelce, which is a big loss, but at the same time, like, they still have the other 4 guys who are on that offensive line. They didn't really lose anybody. Then you add Saquon Barkley, who will erase a lot of your issues.
Yeah.
And he's definitely proven that this year, over on another over 100 yards rushing. And then A.J. Brown, Dallas Goedert. I mean, those guys are solid. And then this Eagles defense has been so underrated all year long. But I think what the Eagles defense really did is prove to you that there are ways to stopping this Ravens team. And I think that's not good for the Ravens.
Yeah.
Now, does that mean that that the Ravens can't win other games? They absolutely can. The Ravens, I still think are a tough out. I think they could, on their best day, beat anybody. But yeah. I believe that with the Bills, and I also believe that with the Chiefs, and I believe that with the Eagles. And they're at home against Philadelphia, and they can't beat them. That's a little bit of a concern.
Yeah.
Like that's a game that you needed because the Steelers in your division are kind of running away with it, and you losing this game. I know this is a tough one, but you're at home. That
Yeah.
should be your advantage, and now you're 4-2 at home, and that's a little worrisome.
Yeah. I think what's tough is this game feels like you put it on Lamar Jackson, but Lamar Jackson, for all intents and purposes, is playing at an MVP level. But I will say, watching some of this game, I think what I felt concerned with the Ravens is, I mean, the Eagles played really well. I'll say that. I'll give them their credit. I'm not trying to say that they're a bad team that just lucked out and beat the Ravens. Yeah. I think the argument more is, I think the Ravens played themselves. They just, whether it was the way that they were running the ball with Derrick Henry, because he did get 19 carries, but he only had 19 carries, I think is what I want to emphasize is I would expect more in a closer game. You're really using him as a battering ram to wear out that defense. Lamar Jackson had only 8 carries, granted 79 yards, but only 8 carries. I think the Eagles, you get that type of team on their heels is you mix in some run plays and you're working with the RPO, you get some play action involved. And don't get me wrong, they took their shots, but the Ravens, just for some reason, as the game wore on, as I'm watching this game, it just felt like that they overcomplicated it for themselves. They were trying to go for big plays for no reason. It stalled out a lot of these drives. Before you knew it, the Eagles just played their brand of football. They ran the ball effectively. They took care of it, and they were able to just get down the field and able to create opportunities for themselves. It does not help, though, that the Ravens had Justin Tucker, who missed, 2 or 3 crucial kicks?
Yeah.
Or he missed 2 field goals and an extra point. So that's, 7 points right there, and they lose by 5. This is a completely different game if he hits those field goals. But again, the Ravens, for some reason, seem to beat themselves before a team does.
Yeah.
And by all intents and purposes, the Ravens should be at the same upper echelon as the Bills, as the Chiefs, and yet they're just not there. They're the little brothers of the group. And it doesn't feel like, even with Derrick Henry, they should be this elite team, and they are just, unfortunately, underachieving. And they're even doing that in their own division, which is hard. So I think the Ravens, I don't want to say pretenders, but I would say maybe they're not as ready as we thought they were.
Yeah. I just want to say this. Raiders, trade for Lamar Jackson.
Yeah.
I'll take him.
If the Ravens want the 3rd overall pick, it's theirs. If we can get Lamar.
If it's Lamar Jackson or Shedeur Sanders, I got to go Lamar. I'm sorry.
Yeah, he would be so fun in Las Vegas.
He would be so good.
All right, so I'm going to incorporate the last 2 questions here for the previous week. So we had Saquon Barkley that you just read off. He had an amazing stat line against the Eagles. You had Josh Allen, who had a dominating game against the Niners in snow. It looks like that it's these 2 that are heading on a collision course for the MVP candidacy. So I'm curious, out of these 2 MVPs, which player do you think is going to matter the most when it comes to who gets them to win the Super Bowl?
So I'll just start off by saying this. I think it's Josh Allen's trophy to lose.
Right.
I think it's too hard to say that it can't be Josh Allen, but what I do feel like is that Josh Allen, if you take him off of that team, the Bills aren't as good. I mean, I think that's safe to say. But if you take off Saquon Barkley, the Eagles are what they were last year.
Mm-hmm.
And last year they were pretty darn good. And I think that's a fair argument to make. And that's what a lot of people are hanging their heads on and saying this is why Josh Allen should win the MVP. And I'm not denying that. But what I am saying is a lot of people are like, you put in one of the best running backs in the NFL and you put him on a already really good team, of course he's gonna do great. Okay, that's fair. But then I heard you put any running back in that Eagles offense and they're going to do really good. They're going to put up numbers like this. Mm-hmm. And at first I was like, oh, yeah, I mean, wait, no. Because there was a guy named Miles Sanders who was, a lot of people at least in fantasy community, hated because he would never get the numbers that he should be getting on a dominant offensive line that Philadelphia had. And so I think people need to realize that Saquon Barkley, what he's doing, it's really impressive. And yeah, it helps that he's already on a good team. I think that's fair to say, but you cannot take away what he's doing because they did have some rando in their lineup. Miles Sanders that they I believe he was a first round pick for the Eagles. If not at least a second round pick. So this guy was supposed to be plug in, start right away, and he never got to the level that they wanted him to get or that they thought he could get. So you can't just say you can pick any guy and throw him on the Eagles offense and he's going to do great because we literally saw it and it wasn't there. Was he I want to say DeAndre Swift was the running back
last year.
There last year. He wasn't that great last year. I mean, he had a couple of really good games, of course, and that's going to happen. But for all intents and purposes, that's why he got paid in Chicago. Philadelphia was like, we think we could, and they were like, oh shoot, Saquon's on the market, let's go get him.
Right.
So yeah, we can dump on Saquon a little bit and be like, well, yeah, it helps that you're on a great team and you know, you already have an established quarterback. You have an established offensive line. The defense is really good. You have A.J. Brown as a receiver. You have, you know, Dallas Goedert as your number one tight end. Like, yeah, that really helps. You're 100% right. Cannot argue that. But also what you can't argue is you cannot say that you can pick any running back and throw him on the Philadelphia Eagles because we literally saw it 2 years in a row and it never worked out for them. That's why they went out and got a guy like Saquon Barkley. So we can't hate on Saquon Barkley for making a business decision from going from the terrible New York Giants and what looks like a guy who literally held up that team for as long as he was there to coming to a Philadelphia Eagle team that is in a win now mode and he's dominating and he's on a mission. Yeah, of course he's on a mission. He was on a crappy team. The team that could potentially be the number one overall pick in the NFL draft.
Right.
And they weren't even, I mean, they were always somewhat around there, but they were always like around the top 10 picks or top 15, but they were never close to number one pick. Now all of a sudden they lose Saquon and they're like, oh, we're awful.
Right.
And it's like, yeah, that's what happens when you lose a talent like that. So for me, I think Josh Allen is going to be the MVP. And I said that already. But I do think Saquon Barkley does need to get a little bit more respect for what he has done because I keep hearing all these people saying, oh, Saquon, you know, he just is a plug and play type guy. Like he just happens to be a great talent. Yeah, he's a great talent who's proving to you why the Giants are stupid for letting him go.
Yeah. So let me ask you a part two of this. So you mentioned that you said Allen's probably going to win MVP. Barkley deserves the respect, though, to be in this MVP conversation.
Yeah.
Which player? So we have the Bills and we have the Eagles. With these two MVP candidates, which team do you think is closer to winning the Super Bowl? Is it the Bills or the Eagles?
That's tough because there's so many factors. I'm going to go with my gut, and I'm actually going to go with the Bills. And the reason I'm going to say that is they have proven time and time again that Josh Allen is, I don't think it's arguable anymore, is the top 3 quarterback in the NFL. I don't think it's arguable.
Right.
And they added a guy, James Cook, who is a good runner. I don't think anyone's thinking he's top 5 running back. Maybe you can make the argument top 10. I don't know. I'd have to like do a list for me to be like, oh yeah, you'd have to throw him in there. But
right.
You know, but I don't think we would say he's a top 5 running back like a Saquon. I think that's fair. And they literally lost Stephon Diggs and look better.
Mm-hmm.
And they've lost a lot of their defensive player. And yet they're still really good on that defensive side of the ball. So to me, the Bills have now proven they're the better team. The Eagles had this controversy with their coach,
Mm-hmm.
with their quarterback, and shoot me if you want to, whatever. I don't think Jalen Hurts has played as good this year as he has in the last couple of years. And even last year, I don't think he played that well. So I think he's kind of regressed. You could make the argument, hey, it's because they're using Barkley more. They don't have to use Hurts as much.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I'm not debating that. That's fine. But for all intents and purposes, I don't think Hurts has gotten better. I don't think he's gotten worse, but I just don't think he's been better. I think he's been kind of stagnant. Barkley's great. A.J. Brown is great. That offensive line is really good. The defense has proven that they can hold their own.
Mm-hmm.
But if I'm in a one-score game, less than 2 minutes left, and I'm starting on my own 20-yard line, and I need to move down the field to either get a field goal or a touchdown, whichever one it is, who do I think is going to get there? Just strictly looking at the quarterback position, not talking about the rest of the team. I think it's Josh Allen. Okay, let's plug in the team. I still think it's Josh Allen and the Bills. Yeah, I would trust that the Eagles, if they're on a 3rd and 1 or a 4th and 1 and the tush push is going to work,
Right.
Great. Tush push all you want, but that runs the clock.
Right.
So for me, I would trust Josh Allen. So to me right now, I think the Bills are the better team.
I like that. I would say, so MVP wise, I think Barkley, I think this is closer than what people think. And I love that you brought up the whole skepticism and people saying, oh, Barkley can go into any system and this, that, and the other. But what I think people don't account for is last season without Barkley, the Eagles started off at 11-1 first 12 weeks of the season. And then they were 10-1 the first 12 weeks of the season. And then they proceeded to lose the last 6 of their final 7 games. And they finished with 11-6 record, bounce in the wild card of the playoffs. They added Barkley. And I will say that credit to the Eagles for adding Nick Fangio as a defensive coordinator, Kellen Moore on the offensive side. It's really helped Jalen not turn the ball over. However, it has also made the Eagles deadly in terms of the run game because they actually have designed plays for Barkley that benefit his skill set. And we're seeing that. I think too that I want to just emphasize how crazy or how great that is for a running back to even be in consideration that Saquon Barkley has done this much to where he has gotten the Eagles to be 10-2 and basically tied for the best team in the NFC, to where there's conversations and it's a realistic possibility the Eagles could be back in the Super Bowl if they continue to play the way that they are and they're beating tough teams when it matters the most. A lot of that is because Saquon Barkley. Jalen Hurts didn't have to play hero ball because Saquon Barkley ran that team to that victory against the Ravens is what I'm referring to. I will say, though, Josh Allen, though, is playing at another level that I haven't seen. Statistically, not his best season, unless you're looking at the turnover factors. Known for being turnover prone his whole career up until this season, and you're seeing that big of an impact it's making.
Yeah.
The way that he's protecting the ball and the way that the Bills are running their offense is motivating the defense to be more stout, to create more turnover opportunities. That's what we saw with the game on Sunday Night Football against the Niners in the snow. The more that they were feeding off of the energy that Josh Allen was giving, the more that the defense came alive when it mattered the most. And to answer the second part of this question, I would agree. The Bills seem like they're poised to, if they can get past the Chiefs, they're poised to get finally to the Super Bowl. They just feel hungrier. They feel like they're at a position where they don't feel arrogant, like, oh, we've got this. They actually feel like they're ready for a fight. And that's something that the Bills, I haven't seen them have in the last few seasons when they had Stephon Diggs and all these other weapons, where they were arrogant and like, oh, we've got this. This season feels like that they started off, we need to prove to everyone that we are a good football team. And because of that chip on their shoulder, they've reached a different level that I haven't seen the Bills have since Josh Allen has been there. So I think that the Eagles could get to the Super Bowl, but I think Josh Allen, I would agree with you, Drew, is the difference maker that's going to get them over the hump. Just because this season he is willing this team to victory, whereas the Eagles, you can argue the sum of their parts collectively is what's fueling that success. It help a lot, though, that you have an all-pro running back in Saquon that's leading in the rushing factor of that, but they still have a plethora of weapons, where the Bills, they just seem like this team that will do whatever it takes to absolutely, get after you when they have an opportunity. So I would agree. I think the Bills and Josh Allen are closer to a Super Bowl than it would be the Eagles and Barkley. All right. So let's do a couple of who you got for week 14, Drew. So I'm going to give you a team with who's favored, and you're going to tell me who you got. All right. All right. So we got leading off, we have the Packers going to Detroit. It's a NFC North rivalry game. We got Detroit favored at 3 points. Who you got?
So typically Thursday night games are defensive-less. There's usually no defense in these games. And for all intents and purposes, the Packers have had the Lions number for as long as I can remember.
Yeah.
And I got to be honest, I really think that the Lions they're home in Detroit. They've been really playing great football. They've had a full week, just like the Packers have, to play in this game. But I just think the Lions are going to absolutely put it on the Packers. I would take the over. I would take the Lions. And the -3, or what is it, 3.5? No, it's -3.
It's -3.
Yeah, I would take the Lions. Honestly, I could see them winning by. I think it could get to at least 14. 15
you think
points.
it's going to be? You think it's going to be almost a blowout?
Yeah, I do, because I think the Lions really want to put it on them. So I think the Packers have a good team, but I think their defense isn't great. And when their defense starts kind of struggling, they've never found a way to stop the bleeding, and so I just think the Lions are just going to keep putting it on them. But I mean, I wouldn't, if there's a line somewhere that's way over 3. I don't know if I would go more than like higher than 6, 6.5. But I would, the line at 3, I would take the Lions.
Okay, I'm going to go with the Lions as well. I will say, though, I do think the Packers will cover. I think they'll lose within the 3 points. I think because it's an NFC North divisional game. Packers are a very good team. They have a pretty good offense with Matt LaFleur. I think the Lions defense the last few weeks have been giving up more points than I would anticipate. So I think that's why, I think you're right. The Lions will win this game, but I don't think their defense is going to shut out the Packers like we would anticipate. But I also give that credit to the Packers of being a really coached football team. I mean, 9-3, they've gone through their injury woes throughout the season, and this team is still, for all intents and purposes, in the running for a pretty good wild card spot. And, they're a team that is a dark horse, in my opinion, in the NFC. But I would still go Lions, but I'd have the Packers cover.
Yeah.
All right. Next game.
So you're having the Packers cover. I'm sorry.
Yeah. So I have the Lions to win, Packers to cover.
Got you. Okay.
All right. So next game, we've got Falcons at Minnesota, and we got Minnesota favored at 5.5. Again, this is in Minnesota. Drew, who you got?
I'm gonna pick that's too big of a number. I'm gonna pick the Falcons to cover there. 5.5 is a big number. I don't think the Vikings have been playing big time, great. I think they're playing okay. I mean, I think obviously they're still winning football games. They're 10-2.
Right.
And I know a lot of people have been kind of dumping on the Falcons recently. Last couple of games, they haven't looked great. But I do think that when everyone starts kind of like, okay, Kirk Cousins, I'm off, he seems to come back.
Sure.
So I'm going to pick the Falcons to cover here. I would probably say the Vikings are probably going to win. I think they have a much better team overall, defensively, offensively as well. But I think the Falcons are going to be in the game at least.
Okay. So I'm going Minnesota as well, but I actually have them to go over on the spread because I think the Falcons are very vulnerable. I think Kirk Cousins is in a slump. I think as we get towards the season where the Falcons really need to step up and win good games, like big games, to stay relevant in their own division, I think them dropping to the Chargers kind of just gets them in the spiral where they're not going to be able to keep up with the Buccaneers. I think the Buccaneers are going to find a way to pull away and win this division. And I just see Minnesota. They had a come from behind game against the Cardinals, who were jockeying for the number one spot in their division themselves. So I really like Minnesota, and I have them going over on the spread here at 5.5.
Okay.
All right. So next one. This is actually a sneaky good game, I thought. We got Bills going to LA against the Rams, and the Bills are favored by 5 points. So Drew, who you got?
I'm actually going to I'm going to take the Bills to win, but I'm going to take the Rams to cover. It's in LA. I don't think that's bad. The Rams just came off of a pretty close win. And the Bills pretty much dominated the 49ers, and so they're feeling really good about themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Going into LA, I think they're like, oh, well, it's going to be nice weather. It's going to be neutral weather. Like, we'll be fine now. So I think they're going to kind of be feeling themselves a little too much.
Uh-huh.
And so in that case, I do think the Rams are going to be covering that 5 point spread there. However, I do still think that the Bills are going to win this game. Surprisingly, it actually opened at 3.5.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of surprising so there must be something, maybe some news that we don't know, or if they're just really feeling the Bills. But I just think after a big win like the Bills had, and the Rams had a tough win, I think the games are going to be a little bit closer than what maybe most people would think.
Yeah. All right. I'm looking at. I don't see really anything on the injury report that would suggest to me that, the line moved up from, opening at 3.5 to go to 5. My only thing is I think they're riding on momentum with the Bills, I think is why they're pushing the line.
Yeah, probably.
But I would say, too, the Bills have a tough matchup defensively because, in my opinion, the Rams have a very good offense when it comes to the running back, Kyron Williams. Then you have Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp. Matthew Stafford, yes, he is a little long in the tooth and he turns the ball over when he shouldn't, but he does air it out and he will challenge, secondaries. And I think the Bills are in for a long day when it comes to these weapons that LA has. However, I think that they will be beaten up on the Rams. I do have the Bills on this one. I do have them to go over, but I say that to say like 10 points. I'm not saying it's a blowout. I just think at the line being at 5 right now, I think the Bills can go over. I'd seen them winning by a touchdown or more. So that's what I'm going with.
Okay.
All right. Next one is AFC West divisional matchup against the LA Chargers in Arrowhead against the Chiefs. The Chiefs are favored at 3.5 points. Drew, who you got?
So I'm actually going to surprise you, I believe, and I'm going to pick the Chargers to outright win.
Okay.
So the Chargers have allowed the fewest points against in all of the NFL, with an average of 15.7. So that's the best defense that you're looking at right now. You're going against the Chiefs that really struggled against the Raiders, so I think their offense is going to come out firing. But I do think the Chargers have proven that they have guys who can do really well. They're really good against the run. They're only averaging per game, allowing 119 yards rushing. In the passing game, I think this is where it's actually very surprising because they have a lot of young guys. They're only allowing 206.4 yards per game against the pass. And when you talk about Patrick Mahomes, who hasn't had the greatest statistical year this year, yes, they're in Kansas City. I do understand that. But after a really struggling win that the Chargers had, I think they're going to come out and just completely be firing against the Chiefs, and I think that defense is going to really suffocate the offense. So I'm actually surprisingly going to pick the Chargers to outright win in this game.
So I would actually like both these teams to tie, if I'm being honest, but it's not that crazy, and here's why. I'm also going to go with the Chargers to outright win. And the reason for that is majority of the points that you had made, their defense, I think Justin Herbert, and they're getting a little bit more continuity with their passing game. I feel like Conkley is coming into form. He's kind of like they're now like everyday wide receiver that's just catching all these big, getting all these big catch receptions and being able to get a lot of yak from that. And I feel like the Chiefs are bound to lose another game, and the Chargers, in my opinion, only lost by a touchdown in their first matchup. I feel like that this is a game where the Chiefs are going to fall to them at home. It just feels like one of those games where the Chiefs are just getting, hit on all sides. And I feel like that the Chargers are they're poised to take a game in this division from this opponent, because I don't see the Chiefs just being able to sweep the entire division. I feel like the Chargers are one of the teams in the division where they're going to hand the Chiefs a second loss in this season. So I got the Chargers outright win.
All right, interesting. We both agreed on that one.
Yeah, wasn't that far-fetched? I was like, I'm feeling the same way. All right, so this one really not too impressive of a game. I think what I'm intrigued by is just you have the Bengals. We're going into Jerry World here. The Bengals are favored at 5 points. Excuse me. So who you got, Drew?
I'm actually going to take the Bengals to win over. The Cowboys have been competitive, but this Bengals offense at least has been really, really good. I know their defense has been bad, but I'm not really nervous that Cooper Rush is just going to throw 400 yards. I don't think he's going to keep up with what the Bengals are going to be able to do. It's sad to watch this Bengals team of how good of an offense they are and just how bad their defense is. And they're a 4-8 team. Like, by all means, they should be an 8-4 team.
Right.
If they just had you plug in Max Crosby, that's already okay. The Bengals are 8-4. I fully believe that. But I just don't think the Cowboys defensively have been playing inspired football. CeeDee Lamb seems to be kind of struggling with injuries. I don't like the Cowboys' run game, although, last game they were doing pretty well, but I don't think that's going to be consistent. Maybe it is against Cincinnati. I could be wrong on that one. I could see that happening, but I still would take Cincinnati over. I mean, the way that Joe Burrow has been playing, Jamar Chase, I was looking at it in fantasy. I'm in this league where it's a long story, but basically, if you're one of the top seeds, you get to pick between the two wildcard teams. Like, if you're one of the top seeds, you can pick which wildcard team you play that week. And we had a guy who had Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase, and I told my brother-in-law Diego, I was like, because we share the team, and I was like, maybe we should avoid that because I'm a little nervous about that one.
Yeah.
And he was like, yeah, I don't know. So just looking at just those two guys made me nervous. So
yeah.
I think I'm going to take the Bengals over here.
Okay. Here's what makes it tough, because I can very much see the Cowboys winning this game because the Bengals defense is non-existent. And there's no such thing as a Bengals defense. It just doesn't exist this season, because I couldn't tell you how many games that they've lost because of their defense. Joe Burrow throws for a bunch of yards. And I said this last week, Joe Burrow is having statistically an MVP season, but his defense is letting him down. And it has nothing to do with always throwing a bunch of turnovers. No, the defense can't stop a nosebleed to save their life. Any team can just march down the field and score on the Bengals, which I think is what I'm a little bit worried about, because the Cowboys offense isn't that great in general. Against a good team, it's not very good. But against a Bengals defense, it's going to look like it's pretty good. But I'd like to think that in a shootout, the Bengals probably have an edge over the Cowboys because, again, I think the Cowboys defense is okay. Their pass rush is good. But if you can create a little bit more time in the pocket, like Joe Burrow has the ability to do, you can probably neutralize that pass rush. And you have Jamar Chase, T. Higgins. You have another rookie receiver that's actually kind of come into his own right now that I think is a pretty big threat in Dallas. And this is at home in Dallas. And I think Joe Burrow plays really well at Jerry World. I think he's played very well against that team pretty much his career. So I will take the Bengals in this one, but I'm going to have the Cowboys to cover because I think it's going to be closer than people think. All right. Next one up, we got the Chicago Bears going to San Francisco against the injury-riddled Niners. Drew, who you got? The line is at 4.5 for the 49ers.
This is a tough one, but I'm going to go with my gut here, and I'm going to take the Niners and the over. Okay. There's so many rules being played that is hard for me. So when you take a team that loses as bad as they did against Buffalo, I mean, Brock Purdy under 100 passing yards. I know it was snowing, everything.
Right.
Like, they were demoralized. Like, Josh Allen wasn't even that great. And that's all everyone can talk about is how dominant he was against the 49ers. Like, that's demoralizing. Then Brock Purdy couldn't even throw for over 100 yards. That's demoralizing. And then you lose Christian McCaffrey for the rest of the year. That's demoralizing. It looks like you're going to lose, what's his name, Jordan Mason as well. That's another demoralizing thing. So a lot of things are adding up here. But when you take a team that is down that bad, the next week they always come out and are just way better than the week before. It doesn't matter what kind of team it is. In the NFL, whatever team gets blown out, they end up coming back and playing really well. The other rule, though, is that when a team loses fires their head coach, the next week they always do really good. So this is a really tough one for me. So I'm going to go with my gut, and I'm going to pick the 49ers because we're focusing on, they lost Christian McCaffrey. They lost Jordan Mason. Brock Purdy didn't play that great, or whatever. Okay, well, we're playing in San Francisco. You still have Deebo Samuel, whatever he is at percentage wise. You have George Kittle, who's gonna be honestly is probably going to be the number one target in my opinion in this game. And I think is Ayuk back? I don't remember now.
Ayuk is out for the year.
Oh, he's out for the. I'm sorry, Ayuk. Pearsall. That's what I'm saying.
Pearsall.
Yes. I think he's going to be. He's going to come in a. He's going to have a bigger role. So I'm actually going to pick the 49ers. And like we talk about, that defense really got embarrassed against Buffalo. And again, it's in the snow. I'm not saying the 49ers were this terrible team, but, it sucks. You lost, and all anyone can talk about is the plays that happened against you. And that was, the big run by James Cook, or the big passing touchdown to Josh Allen, from Josh Allen to Josh Allen,
Right.
That's all anyone can talk about.
Yeah.
And so I think the 49ers are going to come out and they're going to be hungry for Caleb Williams. They're going to be absolutely wanting to feast on this Bears offense. And I think the Niners offense is going to benefit from that as well. So I'm going to take the over for the 49ers.
This is a tough one, as you said. I think I'm leaning towards the Bills to win outright because of Matt Eberflus being fired.
I knew you were going to say
it. I feel like the Bears are going to respond well. This is in California, Caleb Williams' home state. I feel like he's gonna feel more comfortable to play. Again, I don't think this whole season Caleb Williams has been given the opportunity to really utilize his offensive weapons that he's had. And I think part of that is the coaching by Matt Eberflus. Like, there's Keenan Allen, who Williams can rely on. Then you have DJ Moore. You have obviously Odunze and Cole Kmet. They have a really good defense if it is able to, get off the field and give that offense more opportunity. The Chicago Bears defense is a bit underrated. I don't think it gets enough respect. And I feel like the 49ers are in such a vulnerable state. They're not going to have Trent Williams because, unfortunately he lost his newborn to a stillbirth. So, thoughts and prayers go out to that. He's not going to be in this game. You don't have Christian McCaffrey. You don't have Jordan Mason. You don't have a bunch of your key defensive players as well. And I feel like that this is just a game where the Chicago Bears come out and they play with energy just because, they had a head coaching change. They're looking to get a new voice in there. I think their interim head coach, his name is Coach Thomas. He's already gotten that offense looking even better once they got rid of the once they got rid of the OC. And I just feel like that this Bears team is poised to just show that they actually have some fight in them. And unfortunately, the Niners are just in a point in the season where they're trying to stop the bleeding. It just they're just going to have to ride it out. There's nothing that they can do because I know that they want to play to maybe get a wild card and maybe make some magic happen, but they're too injured. They're too vulnerable. To me, this is just the season where the Niners are just going to go through it, and they're going to have to think about next year if they want to retool, maybe blow it all up. Like, where are we at with it? Because I think that that's where we're at. I don't see Deebo Samuel. I don't see George Kittle as much as those players are pivotal to the 49ers. How much do they have left? Brock Purdy, can you rely on him to win you games when majority of the weapons that you surround him with aren't around anymore? And that defense that you would lean on is so injury riddled right now that, yes, they're playing really well, but how much is that sustainable with your third or fourth stringers? Like, I just don't see it. I feel like this is a Chicago Bears game to win, and this is just a continuation of the Niners to fall, unfortunately, from where they once were. So I've got the Bears to win outright. All right, Drew, final game, of course. What would a pick'ems be without putting our Raiders in here? So the Raiders are traveling to Tampa. Tampa Bay is favored at 6.5 points. Who you got?
Tampa has everything to play for, and Vegas doesn't really have anything to play for at this point. The only reason we're playing is to see if we keep losing. And so I'm hoping we do. It's in Tampa Bay against a defense like a Todd Bowles defense. We don't do well against like good to average defenses. We don't do well. I'm picking the Buccaneers over. I think they win this outright. I don't think they. I just don't think the Raiders can be competitive. Like I just believe that Baker Mayfield is a surgeon when it comes to the middle of the field, and I think that's where we're most vulnerable. And I believe that, excuse me. I believe that Aiden O'Connell is going to struggle in this game. I think he could get probably over 200 passing yards. But I could see him having a pick or two, or maybe like a pick and a fumble or something like that. I just see a couple of turnovers here and there, and that are going to do us in. And I don't think a running game, as well as McCormick played last week, I think that was a shocker. I don't think the Buccaneers are going to allow that this week. So, okay.
So I'm going to go with the Buccaneers as well. However, I am going to have the Raiders to cover because it is 6.5 points. I think I can trust the Raiders defense to play well against Baker Mayfield. At least I hope.
One of you said that.
Yeah, right. Well, the last time we met Baker Mayfield, he literally walked off the bus for the Rams and went 94 yards to beat us on that Thursday night football game, which I still remember.
Oh, great. That's great.
But I do think that the Raiders can cover the spread here. Tampa, I do foresee winning. I think a couple of shining lights here is that Nate Hobbs is questionable, so he might be back. That's a huge piece of our secondary that we could really use right now because we are really banged up there.
Just shut him down.
We also have Madison.
Trying to get a number one pick here, guys.
Put it in the practice squad. Obviously, we have Madison, who's potentially coming back, and then Zamir White, which I don't think he's going to be that utilized in the offense. But I do think that with the defense playing with pride, do I think that we're going to win this game? I think that's a long shot, but do I think that we can lose by less than 6.5 points? I think so. So we'll see. But that's what I would say is I got the Buccaneers, but the Raiders to cover.
Can we lose, within 6 points? I think we could.
I think we can. I think it's possible. All right, Drew.
Man.
So, of course, you're on this episode, and I poloed you this in frustration, and I want to get your take on this. And this is regarding Major League Baseball. Unfortunately, our division rivals, the Dodgers, signed former Giants pitcher Blake Snell to a 5-year, $182 million contract. Reportedly, a majority of this contract is deferred, which means that on top of the Ohtani contract, on top of Blake Snell, on top of Mookie Betts, and I even believe Freddie Freeman, the Dodgers reportedly have almost $1 billion in deferred annual salary for these astronomical contracts. So I have some grievances. Okay. First off, what in the hell are the Dodgers doing? Is this even fair? But more importantly, I think the question I really want to ask is, should MLB implement a salary cap?
So first and foremost, honestly, this was a shocking move for me, seeing Blake Snell going to the Dodgers. I didn't see that coming. It shouldn't be. It's not that big of a shock in terms of like, oh, he went in division, because you can be like, well, yeah, he was in San Diego, then he went to San Francisco, and now he's in LA. Like, that's not that shocking. But for me, I was kind of surprised that he was like so quick to go to the Dodgers. I didn't know. I honestly had a good feeling that he was going to stay, because when we hired Posey, I thought that was going to be a really like, okay, now we're going to get a guy who's coming in who understands pictures, who works closely with pictures. Like, I thought that was going to be really effective for him. But I think maybe just because they ended up having to move to someone, I don't think it was necessarily who it was or why or whatever. I think that was a little bit of a concern for him. So listen, I'm not going to hate the guy for going to the Dodgers. Listen, 5 years, $182 million, whether it's deferred or not, that's a lot of money. You can't blame it. Okay. The large contacts that are being deferred, does it suck? Yeah, it sucks. Like, that sucks because, unfortunately, for the team that you and I root for, not in the cards. We're not going to be able to do that as much. I mean, for God's sakes, the Mets have been paying Bobby Bonilla forever.
Right.
Forever. This guy has retired like what is it, 24, almost 25 years now.
Right.
I think he ended in 2000 or 2001 or something like that. And he's still getting paid. I think he's got about
2 years
8
left.
more years. Oh, is it 2?
I thought it was 26 as it ends, but you have to check me on that.
It might be. I was thinking 28, but anyway, like crazy that there are teams out there who are still paying guys. Like, that's insane. But here's the thing. As much as the salary cap, yeah, that would make everything fair, but look at some of the issues that run into with like the NFL or the NBA, where guys want to go somewhere, but these teams can't afford it because they'll overstep the salary cap. And there are ways that where these teams manipulate where they can still sign some of these guys. And I understand all that. But this is what makes baseball very different. And this is what makes baseball interesting, because you can get these super teams. And the way I look at it is simply this. If there was no salary cap in the NBA, Kevin Durant would still be a Golden State Warrior. Plain and simple.
Sure.
In my opinion, I think there would be a way that they would do that where they can make it work. Now, you could make the argument, well, I don't know, with the whole Draymond Green and, that was kind of an issue. I think if Golden State could put up a lot more money than what they were going to be able to for Kevin Durant, I think they would have done it in a heartbeat. But it's just not the case in the NBA. Now, it worked out for the Warriors because right now, Kevin Durant kind of had some injuries and had to overcome it, and is starting to, he's kind of back into being one of the better shooters. But if you look at it from that standpoint, I think it's like, well, if you have the money, why not be able to spend it however you want to? And that's kind of the way I view it. And yes, it's unfair to some of the teams, but at the same time, there are still players out there who are so competitive who are like, I don't want to just go to a team where I'm just getting a free ride. I want to go to a team where I can say, I won this. There's going to be guys who are super competitive who are like, no, I'm not taking that free ride. I'm going here. And listen, I'm not hating on guys who want to take and go to the Dodgers and win, because that's what you're in the business for. Like, that's why you're getting paid, is you keep winning, you keep getting paid. I understand that. But there are other guys who are wanting to just go and beat the bad guy. Like right now, the Dodgers are the empire. It used to be the Yankees in the 90s, early 2000s. And so I believe that a lot of these teams are going to build their team to beat the Los Angeles Dodgers. And as much as we can say we don't want that, we don't want them to just be able to buy any player and they still have a chance at signing Juan Soto. And I get that. Right. That's scary. And if they do, whatever. But the way that a lot of these teams have won has not just been pure talent. Now, this year, I think the Dodgers won because they were the better team and they have great talent. I don't think you can argue that. But, when I look at for instance, when the Rangers won, I don't think they were the best team in that year. I don't think they had the best pitching staff. I don't think they had the best bullpen. I don't think they had the best lineup. But what I do think is they figured out ways to win. And when they did, they won. Hey, they won the World Series. That's great. Right. The Royals were the same way. The Giants, when they won their 3 World Series, they were not the best team, but they knew how to win these games. And so great talent on all these teams doesn't always win out. And I think we've seen that before with the Los Angeles Angels, where they had Shohei Ohtani, Mike Trout, arguably the 2 best players in the game at that point. And they couldn't figure it out. They had Albert Pujols at one point on that team. They had Anthony Rendon, who is a great player when healthy, and they had some really good pitchers as well. And they couldn't figure out a way to win. So yes, you can have this great talent. You can pay all the money in the world that you want, but it doesn't always win out. So you still have to play the games. And so for me, I'm okay without the salary cap. Would it make things a little bit more fair in terms of money? Yes, absolutely. I mean, it's like the Cowboys have the same salary cap as the Carolina Panthers. Right. I get that. But at the same time, like, the Cowboys are still a destination, so why not just, I don't know. For me, it's like, the reason I would want my son to play baseball is because you can get paid however much you think you should get paid. And I think that makes baseball very unique, because you can make an argument LeBron James should make more money in the NBA than Shohei Ohtani. Okay. But LeBron James also makes a lot of money in endorsements, so it's not that big of a deal, And baseball doesn't really have much of endorsement deals that you can add to that player. Like, yeah, you can do the cleats, you can do the gloves, you can have some bats. I'm sure they'll sell some clothing lines and whatnot, but NBA is a bigger sport. NFL is a bigger sport in terms of, being popular. And so it's easier to endorse those guys than it is baseball. So where you lack in endorsements, you can then add in that person's salary. So for me, I'm actually not against it because it just makes me want to beat the Dodgers more, if I'm being honest.
Sure.
And you know, the thing I've been saying to my in-laws, because they're like, "Hey, what do you think about Blake Snell?" And I was like, you know, we're gonna steal Jack Flaherty from you, so I'm okay. So that's my defense. But no, in all honesty, hey, the Dodgers are gonna be the bad guy, and that's okay with me. Like, and I'm sure Dodger fans are okay with it. That's fine. That makes the rivalry even more. That creates more urgency. That creates eyes to the TV for baseball, and I'm a big baseball fan. So if I'm looking at it from the big picture, I think this is great for baseball, if I'm being perfectly honest. Now, as a Giants fan, it's not fantastic. Hate it. But you know what? This makes me think that, okay, now we're going to see – now it's going to be interesting to see where Juan Soto goes. Because now – and I'm not saying if he goes to the Giants or whatever. Like, if he goes to the Mets, now he's showing, listen, I'm not just going to hop on the Dodger train. I want to beat the Dodgers. And so it'll be kind of interesting to see how some of these players end up. Because, listen, the Dodgers bullpen was kind of not fantastic. Like, they were pretty good this postseason, but they did kind of struggle. And so I think this is where they're putting all this money into all these other guys. Yeah. So it's going to be interesting to see how that bullpen kind of shapes out, because that's going to be a little bit harder to get deferred money to some of these guys, because most of these bullpen pictures are like, nah, I need the money now, buddy. Well, so that's going to hurt them.
So I think that's where my big question lies, is the Dodgers, for their main core players that they can afford to defer money to, where you can have Ohtani on a $2 million a year deal until essentially he retires. And then you pay him all of his money after he plays the game. And yeah, sure, you have, like what you mentioned, your bullpen guys are going to want their 20 million up front, 30, whatever. But because of all that deferred money that they've done, they're allowed to do that. They can do that. And I think my point being is, you have some of these smaller markets, like the Kansas City Royals. We're going to throw in there, I'm going to say San Francisco is a small market. You know, you look at some other teams like Miami right now, like they're in a pretty big market, but they're not really well known. And you get the Dodgers that are paying basically for a super team. Is that really attractive to fans of baseball that are trying to get in the sport, but then they see like a super team being formed, like, oh, well, why am I going to watch? I already know the ending of this movie, you know? And I think I do appreciate your point about the Warriors and Kevin Durant. If there was a salary cap, he'd probably still be on the Warriors. But if we remember, the Warriors, basically, it was a foregone conclusion. They were going to win the championship, and they did. And I think what helps with salary caps is you get a chance to create parity within the league. Like, it's cool that everyone pairs on one team, because then they get a greater opportunity to win the championship. And yeah, you're right. In terms of baseball, like, sometimes it's not the best team on the field. It's the hottest team and all these other factors. But what's kind of not cool to see is like, oh, you know what? We can't get Juan Soto because Juan Soto's down to either LA or New York, the two biggest markets MLB has. Yeah. So what about these other teams that could really use a Juan Soto, probably analytically, for their team as well? So I think, like, for a baseball purist like yourself, I can see where, like, let baseball do its thing. This is what makes it fun, is you can have a team like the Yankees, like the Dodgers, that stack talent and they still don't win the World Series. But as baseball is trying to attract audiences, you know, like, if you see a team completely one-sided greatness and really, like, very rarely are they going to lose, like, how hard is that for other teams to compete? And for a baseball fan that's kind of, you know, like an average viewer, they're not in every single game, they're a light viewer. If they see the Dodgers are on, like, am I going to watch this? They're probably going to win. You know, I think I look at that and, like, maybe baseball needs some parity in that factor, but also the whole deferment thing just sounds really weird, because if they also end up with Juan Soto, like, I don't know if that's necessarily great for baseball. And as a team that's competitive, sure, like, I want to compete and beat them. But at the same time, like, they're just taking all the players that can make a difference for a team to be competitive. And, you know, fortunately, baseball is a very good neutralizer. Like, if you have a really good pitcher that can saw down a lineup, it doesn't really matter who's in your lineup. But what makes it tough, though, is for us in our division, we're going to see the Dodgers, 20 something times, and we're going to get pitchers and batter like seeing each other, and it's going to create all this sort of like, they're going to figure each other out. And I just don't know like how great that looks to have a team that's clearly riddled, like heavy with talent, and another team that just can't seem to get talent because the Dodgers are more attractive because they're willing to pay you, whether it's in deferment or up front. And because they're in the LA market, your opportunity to get some sort of endorsement is that much greater. You know what I mean? I think that's where I see it as like, I don't know if it's necessarily a great thing, because like, what if Blake Snell went to another team? Now, granted, he probably would have gone to a team that didn't matter, and it's the Dodgers. And so it makes it more appealing. But like, again, Juan Soto sweepstakes, Mike Trout, eventually he's going to be, somewhere in the free agency market, like where will he might go whenever his deal is up, so on and so forth. I just don't like the whole disparity of one team having all the talent and no other team is in contention just because this team does their salary in a certain way that just kind of seems, I don't know, it just kind of seems odd. They're really leaning into a system that's exploited. So
yeah, I mean, I get that, but I would also make the argument of you look at the Chiefs.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, everyone's been out to get them forever now,
Right.
and they're arguably on the road for a three-peat.
Right.
So, and how unfair is it that DeAndre Hopkins is let go, one of the best receivers in the game, and yeah, he might be a little bit older, but then he goes to the Chiefs on, pennies on the dollar, and he's looking like, oh, DeAndre Hopkins. Oh yeah, he plays for the Chiefs. Like, it's unfair. It is.
Right.
You look at when LeBron James and Chris Bosh goes to the Miami Heat. It's unfair.
Mm-hmm.
But you know what? We all still watched.
Right.
And when the Warriors came in and then they got Kevin Durant, we're like, oh my God, this is so unfair. They're going to win. And then they're in the games and we're like, okay, we're going to watch anyway. It's kind of interesting. We still watched.
Yeah.
So I get what you're saying, and I do understand that, but it does make for better television. It does make like, listen, if I'm going to buy a ticket and I'm going to pay $120 for a ticket, okay, and I'm going to go see the Dodgers play, and I get to see Blake Snell pitch, or I'm blanking on the guy they just got. Oh my God, I totally blanked on him. I was gonna say Clayton Kershaw, but like Walker Buehler or whatever. And then you get to see Will Smith in that lineup. You get to see Freddie Freeman in that lineup. You get to see Mookie Betts in that lineup. You get to see Shohei Ohtani, arguably some of the greatest players in the game now, and maybe in the history of the game, and you get to see it in one game. Like,
yeah,
I get what you're saying, and it's not fair. But at the same time, I do understand why MLB probably won't go to a salary cap, because this could potentially be an absolute money cow. And listen, if we're going to hitch our wagon to a team, then let's hitch our wagon to the, like MLB is going to say, hey, we're going to hitch our wagon to the Dodgers, and it's going to be Dodger content, Dodger content, Dodger content. And rightfully so. It's just like what they did when the New York Yankees were so dominant for all those years with Derek Jeter, and you had Jorge Posada, and you had Bernie Williams, you had Alex Rodriguez come over, you had Roger Clemens, who was like this. Everyone hated that guy. Yeah, that's nice to put. I'm blanking on all the other guys. I remember all those teams, but like, and all MLB was if you're not a Yankee fan, then what kind of fan are you? Like, everyone kind of knew the Yankees are going to be there. Yet we still watched, and like when the Yankees and Mets were in the World Series, I forget what year it was, but I remember watching it on TV, and I remember as a kid being like, I know the Yankees are going to win, but I'm really hoping the Mets just pull it out randomly. And they didn't. But it was like, you still sat there and watched it because you're like, it's baseball. It's fun. You get to see all these great players. I mean, the Mets had Mike Piazza, then you have Derek Jeter on the other side, and it's New York versus New York, and that was great television. And you know, I have to admit, as a Giants fan, watching like the Dodgers and Padres, although as a Giants fan, I still think the Giants and Dodgers are still the better rivalry. At least when you watch a Padre and Dodger game, you get Fernando Tatis, you get Manny Machado, who both of those guys hate the Dodgers. So, you know, then you get Freddie Freeman and Mookie Betts and Shohei Ohtani all on in the same game. Like, that's fun. And, you know, I just feel like although it sucks for like a team like San Francisco, who is not a poor team, but is not a rich team, you know, they're going to be kind of getting whatever scraps are left over. And I don't want to put it that way because I think that's not fair because there's still a lot of good players out there. But at the same time, I do think that, listen, it makes, if you beat the Dodgers, that much more exciting, and the Dodgers are really like really smug. And then if they keep not winning the World Series, then it's like, hey, you guys paid, you know, over $1 billion to keep losing, you know? So you could always say that, but if they keep winning, then hey, they got what they paid for. Yeah. I mean, that you can make that argument.
Sure. All right. To close out this episode, Bobby Bonea's contract, he will continue to be paid $1.193 million from the New York Mets every July 1st until 2035.
Oh, so we got another. It is a lot.
We got another 11 years to go before, but I think Ohtani starts, I want to say like 34 or something like that. 33 or 34 is when his deferred money starts. So we're going to have another one of these contracts from the Dodgers. They're going to be paying like $100 million.
Well, we know they're going to be paying Ohtani long. I forget how long they're paying Mookie Betts.
Yeah.
You know what? I'm gonna do something that you're not supposed to do in podcasting. Babe, do you remember how long they're paying Mookie Betts after he's done? Is it just 10? She's not sure, but she thinks it's at least 10.
That makes sense. Well, it's 10 years for Ohtani too, isn't it?
2044?
Holy cow. 20 years? 20 years?
What? She says it's worth it. See?
We had to ask the resident Dodger fan. For the listener, that's Mrs. Wright, Jessica. Shout out to you.
Who's watching Scandal right now?
This is scandalous, I will say.
I know. Right. I didn't realize you were so mad about it, man.
Well, here's the thing. And again, I think it's because, look, the Dodgers already won. They already have a deep team. What the heck about Blake Snell and giving him this contract? And it's not even the contract. I think it's the deferred money, because it's like, I don't think every team can just put $1 billion on layaway, so to speak, and then just let it run its course, you know? And to me, it's like, okay, you're the Dodgers, so you're going to have all this extra, you know, money from your ownership and the Dodger name, the valuation of your business. Like, it's a lot different than, like, you know, the Cubs or, again, the Royals, we'll say the Twins, like whatever small market team that just has to grow the farm from within to be competitive. It just, like, you know, they bring in all this talent to then get bought out by the Dodgers. And, you know, the Dodgers do have a good farm program, but for now, they seem to be buying talent. And I think it's the discrepancy of one team just is overwhelmingly powerful, where everybody else is like, well, there's nothing we can do. Like, sure, they're going to lose games because it's the regular season, but, you know, they're going to get there at the end of it. And I think that's what's frustrating, is it doesn't feel like a fair fight. But again, they're participating in the rules like everybody else. They're just doing it better. So, you know, I guess I feel like the Coach Klein when he gets his playbook stolen, and I'm calling my grandma, I hate it. I hate it. I hate it. I hate it. That's what I feel like right now. So,
Coach Klein. If you don't get that reference,
you need to go watch it right now.
We can't be friends. No, I mean, I get what you're saying. And like when I first saw it, I was like, dude, what the heck, man?
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's like, listen, I'm not going to change teams. I'm not just going to be like, oh, okay, well, now I'm a Dodger fan because,
No.
But yeah, I don't think I could ever.
No, they better go 162-0, or I'm gonna be
But yeah,
talking all sorts of mess.
When you pay that much, you have way more high expectations than the Giants will. And if the Giants make the wild card, and we're excited about that, and the Dodgers lose in a divisional round or even in a NLCS round, then they're going to be disappointed, and they're going to be talking about, should we fire Dave Roberts? Who should be the next manager? And
they've been saying that for 10 years. It feels like every year, fire Dave Roberts. So.
You guys got to deal with that. I don't have to deal with that. My dealing is, can we sign one player?
Right. Are we in the Juan Soto sweepstakes is our biggest question. So
yeah, which I'm not sure we are going to be, unfortunately.
Yeah.
We have the money to, and it sounds like they may be playing hardball. So that's possible. The Flash.
Yeah. The Blur.
They may be playing hardball and being like, oh, we don't really we're not going to go after you or whatever. And then maybe like in the winter meetings, all of a sudden they like swoop in. So that's possible. But it sounds like they're going to go pitcher heavy. So they're in the sweepstakes of Jack Flaherty. And I just read an article. Who wrote it? It's one of the Giants writers, but they wrote that the Giants have been heavily in talks with with Corbin Burns' agent. So that's another guy that the Giants are heavily going after. So basically, it's going to be the Orioles 2.0 if we're going to get Flaherty and freaking Burns, but whatever. Anyway, so that would be interesting, and I think you add Burns, Flaherty, and then you have Logan Webb. That's a tough 1, 2, 3 starting picture right there. And then maybe Hayden Birdsong is in that rotation. I'm blinking. Maybe Jordan Hicks comes back and goes to a starting position, or he goes back in the bullpen, whichever one. But we have options. Kyle Harrison. I'm totally blanking on Kyle Harrison. Yeah. So yeah, he's pretty good too. So I think the Giants have a good starting rotation. I think that's what they're trying to get to first, and then maybe focus on the fielders. Like I know Ha-Sung Kim is like one of the number one targets that the Giants are going after, because Marco Luciano, one of our like top prospects, they're basically going to move him into outfield position. So he'll probably start in AAA again next year, and then eventually be called up. And then you have Luis Matos, and you have
Elliot
Ramos, and then they just re-signed Yastrzemski. So, and then you're pretty solid at catcher. You might get it like a backup catcher, but Patrick Bailey's going to be your starter. And then you can move Ha-Sung Kim to third base or shortstop, or you're going to move him to shortstop. Sorry, you're going to keep Chapman at third base, and then they're going to go after some other guys. But this is why I'm not sure they're going to go after Juan Soto, is because they have so many young outfielders that they're going for. Maybe you can move one of them to the DH spot, or maybe you can eventually move Soto to the first base spot. I think that would be kind of interesting, but I don't think he's there yet. But that's kind of why I think they're trying to focus pitching first, and then all right, we'll work on the position players that maybe we need. I think they should go after, and I know it would be tough, but I think you could maybe go after a Nolan Arenado and see if he would be willing to go like shortstop, or move him to first base, or move him to a second base position or something like that. I think that would be kind of interesting, and he gets to go back into the NL West. But I don't think he wants to play in Oracle. Oh man, I almost aged myself at Oracle Park, because I think at this point in his career, he's going to want to go to a place where he can hit pretty successfully.
And to think we still have, 5 months until baseball's back. So a lot of off season to go through.
Yeah, a lot.
So
February pictures and catchers report.
That'll be great. All right, Drew, I think we're going to go home. I think that's it for us tonight, man. Well, you know what I mean. So appreciate everyone for listening. Thank you guys for sticking around. It was a longer episode, but a lot to talk about, a lot of sports happening. We didn't even get to the NBA. We'll probably get to that another day, but
so sorry.
Yeah. Appreciate everyone for listening. Go subscribe to the YouTube channel. Go subscribe to the podcast. Wherever you listen to podcasts, we're available. Go check us out on social media. And the voice of the Hornets is here with me. So go check out Stingers Up, which is on the same feed as Drew Code. Drew, you got anything else for the people?
No, just come out and support Sanger West girls basketball on Thursday. We are, like I said, we're playing JV starts at 5, varsity starts at 6:30. We're going to be playing Fowler, so it's going to be a good game. We're looking to win because we had a bad taste in our mouth losing to Parliers. So, we're hopefully going to come out firing. And it looks like a lot of the girls who might have been a little dinged up or whatever, looks like they're going to be coming back and pretty healthy. I think it was a good productive break that the girls had. So really looking forward to that. And then Saturday we are going to be in the Toyland Parade in Sanger. We will be supporting the Sanger West athletics department. So we will be there walking, waving, probably tossing out candy canes and whatnot. So that'll be fun.
Awesome. All right, guys. Stingers Up is out. It came out on Monday, so go listen to the previous episode. Drew will have another one probably next week after the Thursday game and some other festivities, it sounds like, coming up. So we are so thankful for you guys to be tuning in. Thank you for your support and love and affection. Be kind to one another, and we will see you guys on the next episode.